Welcome to another episode of the K&A Football Podcast. It is officially that time of year. It's the middle of August. Football season's right around the corner, and that means it is fantasy draft season. Everybody's getting in their fantasy drafts right now. Some of these are very competitive. There's some work leagues. They go for a lot of money. There's leagues that have been going on for years. People in their 40s have leagues dating back all the way to high school. This is a very big deal to a lot of people, and it's a lot of fun. It's a way to stay in touch with people. And you want to make sure you have a good draft. You want to have a fun year watching your team win, competitive. So we're here to give you our tips and tricks, give you some players to try to target. This is K&A Football. All right, so Austin, as we can tell, first of all, you're in a new setup, so that is a big deal. Austin's big man moving back to college.
Yeah, absolutely right. I'm back here at school, which means that back to the cinder brick wall. Now, fortunately for all of you guys, my mom was like, "Hey, Austin, I can't very well have you going and showing your face on the internet to all of these people, all of the tens and tens of people every single week, and have just a cinder brick wall behind you." And I said, "No, you're totally right about that." And so it was a really good excuse for me to get some more brown stuff. So I got some material. Hopefully, more will show up the longer that we do this. Just an excuse for my parents to buy me more Browns things. So that's
Hey,
really the end goal here.
I hate to say it, but it really looks good. Well, you got the brown stuff on. I mean, I'm on my screen. Got the brown stuff behind you. Got the Panther stuff behind me. It's
I know.
really football-y of us. Look at that.
It is.
But
It is.
yeah, it's been brought to our attention that people like hearing before the show. People like hearing a little bit about our personal lives, and I think right now there's something going on with me, you, and Debbie's life that is taking a big part in our lives. It's making us very angry at moments, and it's fantasy football related. So, as crazy as this sounds, if you're above like 20 years old or 30 years old, I guess you might think this is the dumbest thing in the world, like my dad. But we've decided that we made a 32-man fantasy football league. Now, if you aren't very familiar with fantasy football, a typical league has 10 or 12 guys, and there's 32 teams in the NFL, meaning that every player in this league has only one quarterback, one defense, and one kicker for that league. So somebody's going to get stuck with a Daniel Jones, a Cardinals defense, a Panthers kicker. Like, you're going to get the bottom of the bottom. Somebody's going to get those guys. So on top of that, it's very hard to find a time for 32 guys to be able to draft at the same time. So unfortunately, what we came up with was giving the time slot to make your pick 12 hours, which we have realized is the worst idea possible because we have started this draft Saturday at 2 o'clock. It is now Wednesday. It is 6:30 p.m., and we are in round 6. So it's caused a lot of anger. A lot of people have been texting people, "Hey, hurry up and make your pick." So I know Debbie is also.
there it is.
Oh, look at that! Look at that! Here's the draft. But clearly, that's not even all of the picks. You got to keep scrolling. There's so many of them. So it's been a lot of fun, though.
Yeah, we're only about 192 picks into our 352 pick draft, so we still have a little ways to go. Shout out to Kadin for the fantastic idea of doing a 12-hour clock because obviously, like Kadin said, you're never finding a time for 32 people to draft. But yeah, a little bit of frustration.
Very
because
much
it's
so.
like people will take like hours to draft, and it's like, dude, I know you're by your phone. Like, you were texting me 3 seconds ago. Please just make your pick. Where like you're literally gonna draft Christian McCaffrey. Please just do it. So it's a little bit of frustration, but it's all good. It's all good. It's all for the fun of the game.
And it's fun. It is fun.
Yeah, exactly. Now, some issues that we ran into that hopefully you guys don't run into in your drafts is obviously you'll notice we're drafting right now. It's a little bit early for fantasy football drafts. Like, you normally shouldn't draft until after the preseason. The reason being is that you don't really know what you're dealing with. Maybe there's a breakout player during the preseason. Okay, now you want to target him for your draft. Maybe a player goes down injured in preseason. They didn't think that was going to happen. Okay, now you drafted him. You got to drop him. You wasted a draft pick on that guy. Okay, so not the best time to be drafting, but you're not going to find a time for 32 other people. to draft. So you got to do it before preseason just in case it takes you half a year because you have 352 picks to get through. That being said,
Yep.
that's a lovely little segue into
That
what we're
was
going to talk
great.
about first. So this episode, we're going to, obviously, we always take you guys through some of the recent news that's happened in the NFL. And then this week, we're going to take you through our fantasy tips and tricks. And then we'll wrap it up with a little segment that we have prepared for you guys, one of our new ones. So that being said, jumping into the news, first up here is something that happened in our league. So like I said, we were drafting over this weekend. Like Kadin said, each team only gets one quarterback. Some poor guy in our league, he went ahead and drafted JJ McCarthy as his quarterback. He thought, you know what? I'm going to go for it. I'm going to risk it on the guy. I'm going to take JJ McCarthy as my quarterback. He's going to be my man for this fantasy league. JJ McCarthy then proceeds to this weekend go ahead and tear his meniscus in the preseason game. He didn't practice Monday. He was dealing with knee pain. Then he was like, oh, JJ McCarthy, he's going to have his knee looked at. It's just an MRI. No big deal, guys. Then it comes out JJ McCarthy underwent knee surgery, has to reconstruct his meniscus. He will be out the entire year. So,
Now
JJ
there's
McCarthy.
JJ. There's the poor man.
Yeah, there he is. That's really tough, man. Prayers for that guy's team. He's going to end up with the worst of the worst at quarterback. But anyway, Vikings, they obviously went ahead and got rid of Kirk Cousins this offseason. Brought in JJ McCarthy with the 10th overall pick in the NFL draft. Now JJ McCarthy does not play. Kadin, do the Vikings just kind of like roll with it? They stick with their roster. They just kind of keep fighting, or do they try to bring in someone else? Do they bring in another quarterback from the outside? And if so, who do you think they target?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think this worked out pretty. I mean, obviously, this is not what you want to see. This is a huge blow for the Vikings. But JJ McCarthy was not slotted to begin the season as the quarterback one. Sam Darnold is there right now slotted as their quarterback one, and he was projected to start the season as their starter. And then as the season rolls on, once Sam Darnold struggles, as he will because he's Sam Darnold, yeah, then they'll bring in JJ McCarthy. So I believe that they're just gonna roll with Sam Darnold the whole season, like they never say like the whole season was supposed to be for Sam Darnold, and I don't expect them to have a good season now. I'm sure you agree with me. I'm sure that's kind of the consensus. They're not going to be making a playoff run with Sam Darnold unless he miraculously, revives his career. I mean, he has Justin Jefferson with him. He has Jordan Addison. He has an offensive-minded coach now. But I don't think the consensus is he's anything. I think most likely they struggle, but they end up with a pretty high draft pick. JJ McCarthy can still sit back, get a year of watching film and a year of learning more of the play calls. So in the long run, this could ultimately help JJ McCarthy as you struggle this season. Obviously, you don't play, but your team struggles. You end up with a high draft pick. You get a great draft pick, a high draft pick, new player next season. You come out next season, a year after the injury, a year learning the plays and sitting behind an NFL quarterback. Doesn't matter if it's Sam Darnold. And then you can come back and have a pretty solid start instead of being thrown to the wolves right away like a lot of rookie quarterbacks do.
Yeah, I completely agree. So obviously, don't be going and drafting JJ McCarthy when your fantasy draft rolls around because now you know he is injured and won't be playing this year. Another thing to keep your eye on, Hassan Reddick. He went ahead and requested a trade from the Jets. He hasn't even played a season for the Jets, and he already kind of wants out. Kadin, what's going on here? Like, why is he want out?
It kind of confuses me too. I mean, the Jets they're reloading. They got obviously Aaron Rodgers back from injury. They're ready to go, and they got 1, maybe 2 years. Some people think to go and attempt to win a Super Bowl. Some people are higher on the Jets than others. Yeah, I know we talked about that last week. If you want to hear our opinions, go back and listen to last week's episode. But Hassan Reddick, he's a pretty good defensive end. I mean, a pretty key piece to that defense, to an elite defense, one of, I would say, the top 3 defenses in the league. And he wants a contract extension, and the Jets are, they're saying no. You're playing for us as you are, and he goes, okay, then I'm not going to show up to practice. And they're like, okay, then we're going to fine you. And he goes, Okay, well then I want traded. And then Robert Saleh came out and said, yeah, we're not trading him. And a lot of times you don't hear coaches say that. They're like, oh yeah, we're working through it. We hope to have him here. We'll see how. He just flat out said, we're not trading him. Like I haven't talked to him. We're not trading him. He was very blatant and obvious, but it doesn't sound like Hassan Reddick is very happy with that. There's not much contact between the two sides as it sounds.
Yeah, sounds like a pretty stalemate sort of situation over there. Son wants out. Jets don't want him out because obviously they're trying to build up a fantastic defense over there like they already have. They're trying to bolster that. So I get it from both ends. He wants the money, but he was literally just got there, and the Jets also want to keep their defense really good. Before we move any further in this episode, though, we have to share with you a message from our friends over at K&F Construction. K&F Construction has been specializing in composite decks and serving the Northeast Ohio community for over 16 years. K&F Construction takes the time and effort to provide the services and product you deserve for your home. You can call K&F Construction today at 330-575-2465 for a free estimate. Again, that's 330-575-2465. You can also visit kfdex.com, which is linked in the description. K&F Construction, let us build your dream backyard. So, obviously, Hassan Reddick not doing too well with the contract negotiations. Now it's time to get to our favorite contract negotiation. It is the
We can
ongoing
only
saga.
pray. We can only pray that this is the second to last week we're going to be talking about this. Hopefully next week something is done, and then we talk about the resolution, and then that is it, and we never have to talk about this again. I think everyone is so sick of hearing about this.
Yes, every NFL fan is so done hearing about this. Honestly, we should just make it a new segment. Like, Debbie, roll the theme music for this one. This segment's called "What is Ayuk up to this week?" So this week, Brandon Ayuk, he, you know, we'll take you through the saga here one more time. So that next week we can tell you about the fantastic conclusion. Ayuk, he once paid more. 49ers offer him $26 million a year. He says, no, I think I'm worth more. I want to trade. So then they're like, okay, let's shop him a little bit. So they talk to the Patriots. Patriots, you don't want him? He wants too much? Okay, he's out. Okay, Browns, you want him? No, we're asking too much? Okay, he's out. Steelers, oh, the Steelers want him. This is fantastic. All right, let's trade him to the Steelers. But wait! Right before we trade him to the Steelers, hold on, guys. We can't trade him there yet because now we're working through contract negotiations. So now, finally, it's looking like the 49ers and Brandon Ayuk are reaching a deal. He might stay in San Francisco. It looks like the deal may be consisting of somewhere in the realm of $28 million a year, which is a little bit under what Brandon Ayuk wanted, $30 million a year, but now he doesn't have to go to the cold Pittsburgh. I don't know what to make of this. I don't really know what's happening. Is he getting traded? I don't know. Is he staying in the Bay Area? I don't even know. Is he going to play in the XFL? Probably. I don't know what's happening. Kadin, can you make heads or tails of it for me so I don't lose my mind and then we can get out of the news?
I think everybody is just waiting for the decision they made 2 days ago. It looked that they said Pittsburgh and San Francisco has agreed on a trade. They've agreed on a trade. Ayuk has agreed with the Steelers on contract negotiations. All they were waiting for was the Niners to officially announce the trade. Here we are 2 days later, and that's never happened. And now we're hearing that Ayuk had a private meeting with Shanahan and the GM today, and now it sounds like they might potentially have agreement again. And now it's coming out again today, 6 hours ago, that the 49ers aren't actually really happy with the Steelers' offer, even though a couple days ago it said that they had agreed on a trade and they were happy with it. Nobody knows what's going on. It is so ridiculous. Everybody is sick of it. Everybody is losing their respect for Brandon Ayuk. At least I am, because it sounded like he wanted out. The Patriots said, we'll take you. He says, I don't want to go to the Patriots, even if you're going to pay me this much money. And then the Browns, he doesn't want to go to the Browns. Oh, I want to go to Pittsburgh. Oh, wait, but now maybe I'm going to come back. Just the saga needs to end. I don't understand the difference between $26 million and $28 million. It really doesn't make a difference. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's the worst. And hopefully by next week, we won't have to talk about this anymore. Hopefully next week we say, hey guys, Brandon Ayuk, he reached a deal. He'll be staying here or he'll be going there. And then we never have to talk about him again. And that'll be the end of it. I seriously doubt it.
I just checked my phone. I was really hoping to see like a Ayuk trade notification. Hasn't popped up yet.
No. Yeah,
That's
I got a notification from Bleacher Report, and I was like, wait, this could be it. It wasn't it. No, it wasn't it.
No.
All
That's
right.
something we'll talk about later, though.
Yeah.
Because it was news.
So, today, this is the segment you have all been waiting for. This is one of our favorite episodes of the year. Hopefully, it's helpful for you guys. So, Kate and I are going to rattle off some of, like, obviously, who we think you should draft first. If you get a higher pick, these are the guys you should take first. We're going to give you some of the guys that we think you should take in some of the mid to later rounds, somewhere in the 5th and 6th round. And then maybe we'll toss you a guy that, maybe he can fill that last bench spot for you. We'll see. So this can be used if you're an avid fantasy player and you're just looking for some solid advice. Maybe you're trying to get through all of the noise of all the Instagram reels that are like, I'm the #1 fantasy player in the world. This is what I think you should do. And then they give you some out there pick because, the stats all line up. And the last time this happened in 1946, he went for 10 billion yards. We're going to give you how it is. These are the solid, like the tried players. We're not going to give you any extremely hot takes. These are like good players. So you can use this if you're an experienced fantasy player, you want to win your league, you want to put up a solid showing, or if you're a brand new fantasy player and you just want to know what the heck is going on, who do I draft? Do I just draft the guy that's at the top of the recommended charts? Probably. Okay. So Caden, who do we have for our top guys? I think this is pretty easy. This is the players you should target initially. I think everyone knows this answer, but go ahead and tell us.
Well, I think my answer is a little bit different than yours, but I believe Tyreek Hill should be the #1 pick in a fantasy draft, especially a PPR draft. I mean, obviously, both McCaffrey and Tyreek Hill are kind of the conversations for the top slot. And they both obviously get so many catches. Tyreek Hill has that durability, though. Tyreek Hill has played many they've both played many seasons. Tyreek Hill hasn't really gotten injured, knock on wood, obviously, but he's been putting up top 2 fantasy wide receiver numbers for as long as I can remember watching football. He's been such a consistent receiver. He was ranked #1 in the NFL for a reason, like #1 on the top 100 list. And Christian McCaffrey, who everybody says, oh yeah, he's obviously the #1 pick. First of all, nobody has repeated as the #1 fantasy player in years. So Christian McCaffrey was the #1 last year. I don't think it will be again. It might be 2. It might be 3, but maybe not 1. That's why I believe Tyreek Hill will be 1. And I know this is only August, but Christian McCaffrey has tweaked his hamstring last week at practice. If you don't remember, when Christian McCaffrey was in Carolina, he tweaked his hamstring in practice during the offseason, and that thing lingered with him the entire season. Ended up being his year that he missed pretty much the entire season. So, I mean, you can obviously take Christian McCaffrey. Nobody's going to look at you weird. I think that taking Christian McCaffrey at 1 is more risky than taking Tyreek Hill at 1. I think Tyreek Hill puts up just as much points, and he's much less likely to be injured, as McCaffrey is already a little bit dinged up.
That's kind of fair. Yeah. Obviously, Tyreek Hill, CMC, I think you could take either of those guys at that top spot. And then really for me at least, the next couple guys, it doesn't matter to me the order. I think that it's like the next order is kind of like up to you based on how risk averse you are, like what teams you think are going to play better. But I think that the next 3 players that should go should be in no specific order. CeeDee Lamb, I mean, he's going to get a contract. It's just he will play. Okay, he's too good not to. Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, the Lions' offense was so dynamic last year. They put up so many yards and so many points. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is obviously the wide receiver 1 over there. So you take him. And then Jay Jettis, you take Justin Jefferson. Obviously, it's a little up in the air. He doesn't have Kirk. Does he have the accuracy? Oh, I get it. It's a little bit scary to take a guy who doesn't have a quarterback. How are you going to get him the rock? How are you going to get him the yards, the touchdowns, whatever? I understand that. But when you have a quarterback like Sam Darnold back there, it's like he's going to need that safety guy. When he gets flustered, he's going to need to throw it up to someone. And is he going to throw a lot of interceptions? Probably. But if he's going to loft it up to anyone, I'd want him throwing it to JJ, and I think he's going to. So taking him in the top 5, not an issue for me. Don't be worried about the quarterback situation. So for me, that's my top 5 in no specific order.
Mm-hmm. And then a couple guys to also keep in mind around that area. I think after that tier of wide receivers go, um, Brees Hall and Bijan Robinson. Those two are 1A or 1B, 1C in terms of running backs. I think they are both very, very good running backs. Workhorses. Bijan, obviously, he had a terrible offensive head coach last year, didn't give him the ball, and he still put up incredible numbers. And Brees Hall, all the defenses had to do last year was stop Brees Hall, and they still couldn't do it. So now they have to deal with Aaron Rodgers as well. So I think those two are both very good. So I think those 7 guys, CMC, Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Justin Jefferson, and Bijan and Brees. Bijan and Brees Hall. Those should be the top 7 in no specific order except for the top couple of picks. That should be the top of your draft for sure.
Completely agree with you. And I think that everyone else kind of gets that too. And you'll see that in the fantasy apps, they all got them just like that. Top 7 should go exactly like that in almost every draft, unless you got someone that's doing way too much on their research. And now they're picking, Justin Fields because he's going to switch to kick returner and get all these yards or something. All right, Kadin, who are the players that we should draft in those middle rounds, those solid players that are going to put you numbers? They're not going to win you the league, but they're certainly going to put you in contention once you get into those later rounds.
Mm-hmm. So we have compiled a list of 6 guys that we believe you can get towards the middle, or maybe some of them are a little more closer to the top, but really make sure you target those ones, and some of them are really towards the end. One of them I am very, very high on. I've drafted him in 2 of my leagues already. He's a rookie quarterback. Jaden Daniels out of Washington. He's going as the quarterback 12 right now in fantasy leagues, which I believe is so late in the draft. He has an incredible arm for somebody his skill set. He is such a great runner. Coming out of college, obviously the Heisman quarterback, he can run. He can put up 800 rushing yards this season, and I don't think anybody would be very surprised. I think he's could very well get 1,000 rushing yards this season. He could put up a Lamar stat line, and I think he is a very polished quarterback. And I personally, I am a fan of Washington's weapons. Terry McLaurin, he's a very respectable wide receiver 1. Jahan Dotson's a solid wide receiver 2, and they drafted a rookie tight end. Austin Eckler is a great running back out of the backfield. I'm very high on Jaden Daniels this season, even as a rookie. And I think, especially as rookies, when they are a little bit flustered, what do? They result to their legs. And I think Jaden Daniels, being as great of a runner as he is, if he results to his legs, that's a ton of fantasy points. So I think targeting Jaden Daniels middle of the round, trying to target him, is a big thing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you there. I think that Washington's weapons are good. Like you said, I think that's a great point that rookie quarterbacks, especially ones that like to run in college, are definitely going to be running in the NFL once they get flustered. Another guy that we think you should target is Dalton Kincaid out of Buffalo. He's the tight end 5. Obviously, Buffalo, really powerful offense. And they just lost Stephon Diggs. So you're going to need somebody to throw the ball to, and you're going to need a familiar face. So I think Josh Allen is really going to rely on him as a big body in the middle of the field to get the ball to. And I think that we both think, anyways, that he's going to get slept on a little bit at the tight end position. Obviously, you're going to get some of those bigger guys. You're going to get the Travis Kelce's, the George Kittles. You're going to get them to go early on. But then Dalton Kincaid being a solid option in those later rounds is a real steal if you can get him, I think.
Mm-hmm. And another guy that we have here, Jaden Reed, wide receiver from the Packers. He's slotted as the wide receiver 36 right now. So the Packers are a little bit interesting because obviously they have a bunch of wide receivers. They got Christian Watson. They got Jaden Reed. They got Romeo Doubs. They got a lot of these young receivers. But last year, towards the end of the season and into the playoffs, I am sorry. I just my throat went. I hiccuped. Jaden Reed really emerged as the top dog, the alpha dog on this wide receiver core. He was a rookie last season. And first of all, if you aren't aware with the way of the receivers, especially in fantasy, their second year is the wide receiver breakout years. Like if they're a solid rookie receiver, their second year, typically they tend to like absolutely break out. That's happened with so many guys in the last 5 to 10 years. Jaden Reed, going into his second season now, really developed a rapport with Jordan Love towards the end of that season. And I'm really worried about guys like Christian Watson being injured all of the time. Romeo Dobbs, he's all right. Like he's not a superstar at one thing. He's just solid at a lot of things. Jaden Reed, I think, is the top dog on that offense, and they clearly believe in Jordan Love. He just got the bag, and I think that he's going to be a solid sleeper pick that you can get because there's no alpha dog right now on that Packers offense. I think he can emerge as the alpha.
Yeah. And speaking of wide receivers that break out in their second year, Jackson Smith and Jigba of the why am I blanking on the team name, Caden? It's Seahawks.
Got
The
this.
Seattle
Yeah, there you
Seahawks.
go.
I knew it was Seattle. I couldn't think of the animal that they were. Jackson Smith and Jigba from the Seahawks. This is his second year in the NFL. Solid guy last year. Didn't put up crazy numbers. He was okay with what he was doing over there. He's currently slated as the wide receiver 41, so he's going to go really late. So he's going to be a great steal for you guys. I think that he was a fantastic receiver in college. Now he's a little bit more used to the NFL. DK Metcalf is obviously still a massive force there in Seattle, but I think that obviously what tends to happen, I mean, you look at teams like Cincinnati where they have two fantastic wide receivers, is like guys like Jamar Chase or DK Metcalf in this case get double teamed. They get the over the top coverage, they get the special treatment, and then your second guy is able to break out. So Jackson Smith and Jigba being that second guy, he's going to get more of the one-on-ones. He's not going to get the over-the-top coverage. He's going to be open a lot more, and he was fantastic last year. He'll be even better this year now that he's comfortable.
Mm-hmm. And then we got two guys left. One's a running back, and one is a receiver. Zamir White is a running back out of the Raiders, and he's slotted as the running back 22 right now, so he's going pretty late in drafts. He's right now the running back 1 for the Raiders, and they're gonna either have Aiden O'Connell, who is a rookie quarterback or a second-year quarterback, but he's not someone who you want throwing the ball 30 times a game. So if I'm the Raiders head coach, I am really trying to keep the ball out of his hands, give the ball to Zamir White. And if it's not him, you got Gardner Minshew, who is a better quarterback than Aiden O'Connell. Do not get me wrong. I think that's who they should start. But I still think you don't want him throwing the ball 30, 40 times a game. So I think Zamir White in the backfield and in the pass plays, I think he can get a lot of catches. So in a PPR league, that's a lot of points. His only competition right now is Alexander Madison, who we all thought was going to be an incredible running back last year, his first season as a starter in Minnesota, and we all know how that happened. He was one of the league leaders in fumbles. He had a terrible yards per carry. He ended up just having an abysmal season. So I think Zamir White is a very sleeper pick. I don't think he's going to be like a top 10 guy who you're like, wow, this is like Kyron Williams of last year. I think he's just going to be like a mid-tier guy that you can draft, and he ends up being a top 15 guy that you're like, okay, I'm very glad I drafted this guy late. Like, it did not cost much to get him, but he can,
Yeah. And then the last guy we have here, I'll say a little bit about him, and then Caden can say more if he wants to here, is Xavier Legette from the Carolina Panthers. He is currently slated as the wide receiver 67. He was drafted early in the second round of the NFL draft this year, so he's a rookie. He's, in my opinion, in Caden's opinion, he's going to be the wide receiver in Carolina. Obviously, you have guys like Adam Thielen. They have a little bit more of a repertoire built up as an NFL wide receiver, but Adam Thielen is old and slow, so that's not super helpful. Xavier Legette is
they do have Deontay Johnson.
That's true. But I think that Bryce Young is going to be playing a lot better this year than he did last year. I think that he was in a really unfortunate situation last year and had to run a lot and wasn't able to throw as much as we would like to see him do. And I think this year he's going to do a lot better. I think that Xavier Legette, the wide receiver 67, going really, really late in these drafts, might not even get picked up if we're being honest with you. I think that he's a really, really solid steal to really finish out that wide receiver room in your fantasy drafts.
Yeah, and the Panthers really valued him. I mean, they traded up to the last pick in the first round to draft this guy. So, or the second to last pick. I'm sorry, they traded But they really, I mean, they like him. He's making plays in training camp. He's a big body for Bryce Young to be able to throw the ball to, like a safety valve. Yeah, we're both expecting a big season out of Xavier Legette. I know we know I have him in our dynasty league, and you are very, very much pressing me to give him.
I want him for sure, man. But you won't trade him to me. I have Bryce, and you want Bryce, and I want Legette, and you won't give him to me. So we're a little bit of a
kind of
stalemate
at a
there. But we'll
stalemate,
come to an
yeah.
agreement before their contracts expire. All right. Did we have anything more in the fantasy here, Caden?
Debbie wanted us to talk about 2 players to look out in the last round, like guys who literally will not get drafted that you could try to pick up, like kind of, because obviously at the end of week 1 there's going to be a guy like Puka Nacua who like everybody's trying to pick up on waivers, but to try to get that guy before the Puka Nacua week happens, I have one guy kind of that could be that breakout guy. Washington rookie wide receiver Luke McCaffrey. Why does that name sound super familiar? Yeah, because like the best fantasy player in the NFL is his brother. I think Luke McCaffrey has a very good chance to be a solid receiver for Washington, a breakout receiver. We talk about how we like their weapons, but aside from Terry McLaurin, I mean, Jahan Dotson's a solid wide receiver too, but they don't really have that elite wide receiver 1 and 2 combo. Luke McCaffrey could easily step up and take that wide receiver 2 role pretty early. It's a very, very much shot in the dark. Like there's a 99% chance that you just draft him and then he puts up maybe 1 or 2 points and then you cut him, or even 0. But in the off chance that he does break out, that is the player that I could see definitely breaking out. And if he becomes anything like his brother, then you're getting a stud.
Yeah, that's a really great pick. For mine, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen him drafted, to be honest with you. I think almost every single year, like the guy that I'm thinking of here, it's like always you look at waivers and it's like, oh, I guess he's there. But you never pick him up because he doesn't put up any points. I think it's always fun, though, to last pick of the draft, maybe first week of waivers when your one guy, breaks his leg in half because he was going to be your star and now he can't play anymore. That always happens.
Yeah.
I think it's always fun to have a little bit of Taysom Hill in your lineup.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's always so much fun. Just every now and again, maybe your tight end's got a bye week, maybe he's sick, maybe he's hurt, whatever. Toss Taysom Hill into that tight end spot. He gets points for the catches that he gets as tight end. They love to run jet sweeps with him. They love to throw him at quarterback just because they can. I mean, he is just a basket of points when they actually play him. The issue is you have to find out when they actually play him. So that's a little bit up in the air. But I think the Saints are in a really desperate spot this year, where they understand that they are going to be garbage. They are not going to do anything.
Yeah.
They're too good to be bad, but they're too bad to be elite. And so they're kind of stuck in this really disgusting section of mid. And I think that they're probably going to dip into that Taysom Hill basket a little bit more this year just because they need a little bit of excitement to get the team excited. All right. So
I like that.
Thank you. That's going to wrap it up for our fantasy section of the show. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with our new segment. All right, welcome back, everyone. Our new segment for this week is going to be called our Audible. So basically, what we're rolling with is Caden and I are going to pick a team that we think is going in not the best direction. We're going to pick a team, and we're going to act as though we're the GMs. We get to pick a new direction for this franchise. So this week we're going to be calling an audible for the New England Patriots. We think that they're not heading in a great spot. So Kadin, walk us through this audible. What are we doing first here?
Yeah, so first of all, this is a pretty heavy first audible for us. We managed to pick one of the worst teams in the league right now, so go us. We should have audibled for the Chiefs and just said, we're going to do
doing what you're
nothing,
doing.
and we're just going to keep continuing. But yeah, so New England, obviously not projected to be one of the best teams this season, but there's a lot of things that you and I really disagree with that they're doing right now. Obviously, there's some things you can't control, like guys in the draft, some guys not being there, some guys not wanting to play for you because you're a horrible team. But there's some things that they can control that they're not doing. One of those things is their quarterback battle. They obviously drafted Drake May 3rd overall in the draft this year, and it's coming out that he's not starting the season, and he might not see the field much at all this season. Their quarterback one is projected to be Jacoby Brissett, who, if you remember a couple years ago, he was the quarterback for the Browns up until the point of Deshaun Watson returning. So he was a respectable quarterback, but Drake May is a very different type of quarterback than Jacoby Brissett. Drake May is a sleepy, very mobile quarterback. He can run, he can take hits, but he is a lot more skilled than Jacoby Brissett is. And I don't really understand why you spent such a high pick on him just to sit him. I know some teams do this, but that's when you have a great player for them to sit behind. Jacoby Brissett isn't one of those guys that I think you should be sitting behind. But then in the same breath, you're going to say, we're going to sit this guy for a year. But then in the preseason game, they played him for a total of 3 plays. So he's not getting the preseason reps. He's not getting the first team reps in practice, and he's not going to get the NFL season reps. So he's literally just there. And I really don't like how they're handling that situation. They're giving Joe Milton more reps than their number 3 overall pick. Joe Milton, they drafted in like the 5th or 6th round this year.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you don't want to toss a guy out there that isn't playing well. You know, you don't want to fall into the sunk cost fallacy where you're like, well, we drafted him so high, like we have to play him. And I get that. Like I get that you don't want to do that. But at the same time, you want to do your research. And if you didn't do your research enough to know, like the rest of us fans did, that you shouldn't be drafting him that high. Like he really isn't going to be all that. And looking like he isn't. So that's not a great look from the Patriots. And we all know that last year it was really bad. They had such a terrible offense. Their defense is the only thing that carried them through. And a big part of that was the fact that Mac Jones couldn't get the ball around. Okay, now you have a new quarterback room. Maybe they help out a little bit. Okay, but now you also need guys to catch the ball. And I get it.
They don't have that either.
I get that, like, if a guy isn't doing what he needs to do, you should just get rid of him. But at the same time, if you don't have anyone to catch the ball, why are you cutting guys like Juju? Like, I get it. He is way past his prime, okay? Everyone really thought that Juju was going to be the second coming of Antonio Brown in Pittsburgh, and he just wasn't. He fell off the map really quick and really hard, and now he's getting cut from teams. So if he's not doing his job, I get it. But at the same time, you really need to be bolstering that wide receiver room because you don't have anyone catching the ball for you, and you need a veteran voice in that locker room. So that's just one more thing that the Patriots are really fumbling on here.
Mm-hmm. And then right along with that, you cut Juju. You already have a very slim wide receiver core. Fortunately for you, there's a very, very good wide receiver who's only been the talk of the entire NFL offseason, who there's been many talks of you guys trading for him. His name is Brandon Ayuk. Oh, but wait, here we go. And I don't know if that's a Brandon Ayuk not wanting to go to you. I've heard, well, obviously we've heard many things. It could be Brandon Ayuk doesn't want to go to you, but it also could be very well that you guys pulled out of that trade. You don't want to pay up. In the NFL, you're going to have to pay up to get guys. So when you see a trade, a lot of times where if Patrick Mahomes would get traded today, he would get traded for so much. But you know what? That team wouldn't care because that team that's trading for him is getting a superstar. If you're a team, especially like the Patriots, you're already terrible. It's not like you have a ton of young assets that you love. Like you are starting from ground zero. I would say they are at ground zero right now. So trading that, you don't go any lower than what you're at right now. You just start moving up. I think that they should do all they can to get Ayuk. Pay him all that he wants. You need an alpha. You have not had a superstar wide receiver since, if you want to call Julian Edelman a superstar wide receiver, I guess we can have that conversation. But if you want to call him that, you can. But if not, then you haven't had a superstar since Gronk, and he was a tight end. So throw all of your eggs in the basket. Go get that wide receiver, because right now your number one wide receiver is Kendrick Bourne, and you have Jacoby Brissett as your quarterback or a rookie. You are not doing either of them favors at all. And okay, maybe actually that makes sense then why they're not starting Drake May, because he's going to be horrible. He's going to look terrible if he's thrown to that receiving core. I actually respect that move now.
Oh, we've talked ourselves into it. Okay, maybe don't make him. Don't shatter his confidence in year one like they did with Mac Jones. Don't make him into a terrible quarterback because he doesn't have anyone to throw to. But like I said, even if this is what they're going with, okay, fine. Our offense is terrible. We're going to cut Juju because we don't want to pay the money that we're giving him. Got to cut costs there. We want to make sure that our quarterback doesn't get too flustered. We want to keep him safe. We don't want to trade for Ayuk because it's just too much money. We can't spend that money right now. Okay, fine. Your offense is going to be bad. That's how it was last year. What got you through those games? It was your defense. Okay, you were losing games, but you were only losing games 7, 10, nothing. Okay, you were in every one of those games except you were out of them because everyone knew your offense wasn't scoring, but your defense was doing so well. So keep that. Keep your defense intact. Except no. So while we were recording here,
as of 20 minutes
ago, the Patriots traded Matthew Judon, a 4-time Pro Bowl pass rusher, for a 3rd-round pick to the Falcons. What a fantastic move, Kadin, honestly. I mean, your defense is what's winning the games. How about we trade away our Pro Bowl pass rusher for a 3rd-round pick? We can't even use that this year, obviously, because the draft's already done. So, it's whatever. I guess we're moving on to next year. We're going to throw this one all the way to the wayside. Don't even worry about this year.
For real. And we just talked about ground zero. You can't get below it. They just did. They're at ground -1 right now. So, we don't agree with that move. So, in all, our audible for this week, or for, I guess, this month, well, what are we deciding for the quarterback situation? Are we going to still say Jacoby Brissett since their receivers are so bonds?
I mean, you really got to just, honestly, at this point, the audible for the Patriots is tank the season. Like, I think if they're not already going for that, they really need to. If they want to win whatsoever, I still say go Jacoby Brissett. You probably need to go get a wide receiver somewhere along the line. You need to get a dynamic player on that offense, so you don't have anyone that is a sleepy offense if I've ever seen one. So if you're wanting to win games this year, you need to commit to that. You need to start the guy who's actually going to get the rock around. You need to go get a dynamic player on offense. But if you're building for the future, if you understand that like the Belichick era is over, if you understand that you're now going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL, fine. Keep doing what you're doing.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Job. Yeah. Just tank all the way to the 1st overall pick if that's what you're after here. Oh, the Patriots are in trouble, man. So that's our audible for this week. Patriots, you need to either get it together or fully commit to the tank. And wait, I think this just in. The Patriots are now officially eliminated from playoff contention. Thank you guys for joining us for this week's audible. Now I think Debbie has a comment for us that he's going to read and get our opinion on, or at least mine, because I haven't heard the comment yet, but I hear it was a little directed at me.
It was.
All right, I didn't know you guys were going to put me on, but
oh no, we're pulling you on.
Okay, here he is. All right, so we had a short last week that we did on YouTube, and it was the clip of Austin talking about his MVP pick last week for CMC. And this is from DMVYN. He replied, CMC is great, but in all honesty, his year to do it was last year, and he probably would have if he wasn't on the Niners. What are your guys' takes on that?
Yeah, so actually this is not the first time that I've heard someone criticize my CMC MVP take. And in all honesty, like, I understand where the criticism is coming from. Last year was a fantastic year for him. Is he going to be able to replicate that? Who really knows? Is he going to be able to win MVP? It's a really quarterback-dominated award. Is he going to be able to put up the numbers to even be in the conversation again? So this isn't the first time that I'm hearing about it, and I understand where it's coming from, but that's kind of what makes it a fun pick, in my opinion. Who wants to go with Patrick Mahomes? Because if you pick Patrick Mahomes, it's like he's favorite to win it because obviously. My reasoning for picking Christian McCaffrey here is he's been in San Francisco for 2 years now. The first year he was there, he put up really good numbers. Okay, fantastic numbers. But he was only there for like half the year. He was traded halfway through. So it's easy for running backs to get introduced to a scheme. Like you can kind of throw any running back into a scheme. It's just give him the rock, you know. But then we see what can happen if you're in a Shanahan offense for a full year. You understand the scheme. You understand what's going on. Then you get a year like last year where Christian McCaffrey is able to put up the yards that he did. In the last stretch of the season, he was able to go week after week after week after week of touchdowns every single week. He's able to do that. You go to this year. I understand that it's going to be hard for him to put up the same numbers, but you come to this year. They lose no pieces on offense. It looks like they're going to keep Ayuk. They have the exact same offense. You have Brock Purdy at quarterback. I like Brock Purdy. I like him as a guy. I like him as a player. But Brock Purdy is not a dynamic guy. He's not someone that you're going to keep letting sling the ball around, especially when you're winning, and that's not the Shanahan way. The Shanahan way is when you're winning, you keep the ball on the ground because you can't throw interceptions if the ball's on the ground and you keep picking up first downs. So, this being said, between CMC being a fantastic player, his third year in the scheme, losing no pieces on offense, and the fact that you're in a Shanahan system, I think CMC stands a really good chance to put up either the same numbers that he did last year or even better numbers. I don't see a reason why Christian McCaffrey wouldn't put up the same numbers. He was in the MVP conversation last year. I don't see why he wouldn't. Obviously, a little concerning, like Kadin said, pulls that hamstring. It is August, though, okay? He's got time to heal it. Let him rest a little bit. I think he's going to be okay. Kadin, am I making sense here or am I completely off my rocker?
No, you make sense. I mean, if there's any player to win MVP that's not a quarterback, like we said last week, I agree that it's McCaffrey. I just don't see it as realistic. I think Offensive Player of the Year is absolutely attainable.
All right.
Like last
That's
season.
fine. Yeah, obviously. I'm picking him for MVP. I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to ride it till the day I die. And when he's in the MVP conversation, I'm going to bring it up on this podcast. I'm going to say, hey,
All right.
you hear that?
I'll be waiting.
He's in the MVP conversation, everyone. He's at least there.
I'll be waiting.
All right, Kadin, did we have anything else today?
I do not believe so. I hope this really helped you guys with your fantasy drafts. If you're already doing your draft, pause your draft and listen to this episode. If you're in our 32-man league, you're going to have plenty of time to keep listening. But yeah, make sure you don't pick JJ McCarthy because he's not going to play for you this season. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week for our team-by-team season predictions, one of our favorite episodes of the year, which I know we say about every single episode now, but it really is. So we'll see you guys. That one is legitimately like the most fun. So thanks for listening, guys, and we will see you next week.